Our next speaker this morning is Ben White. Ben is the General Manager of Research at the Kondinin Group in WA. He is an agricultural engineer, Kondinin Group's Research Manager of Farming Ahead magazine, and a member of the GRDC Stored Grain Extension team. Based in WA, Ben comes from a family farm in the New England region of northern New South Wales. Since completing his engineering studies at the University of Southern Queensland at Toowoomba, he has worked for the Kondinin Group for 20 years. Ben has extensive experience in reviewing and communicating a wide range of innovations and technologies, including in the livestock ag tech field. Ben has conducted a review of a wide range of farm security options and will explain the findings here today. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Graham. Righto. Who's been a victim of crime on farm? Who's had something stolen from off their farm? Yep. Or out of the back of the ute when they've been in town? Yep. It's pretty bloody frustrating, is it? I've lost bloody tools out of the back of the ute and you just think, oh, dickhead, I should have just done something about that. Should have been a little bit, as Campbell put it, make the target a little bit harder. And sometimes it's, it's quite simple, some of the stuff that we can do. So I thought I'd run through a little bit of that today. I'm going to talk a bit about cameras as well. Who's got farm cameras? Quite a few. Good stuff. So we'll talk a little bit about that for those that haven't got them, and maybe for those that want to expand their camera network as well. So, but just to give you some background, as mentioned, I've worked with Kondinin Group for, it's nearly 25 years now. It's a bit of an old bio, that one. But we evaluate farm machinery and equipment and technology on a monthly basis. We put out Farming Ahead magazine, so people might be familiar with that publication. But it covers everything from, as you can see, self-propelled sprayers through to farm security cameras, mobile phones every year, shearing sheds, you name it. We've probably done a research report on it at some stage, so happy to chat about that at any stage. But one of the things we do see regularly, and we put a survey out to all our members, is what the big issues are on farm, what people are finding. And of course, with things like fertiliser and fuel prices escalating, a lot of those things are becoming more targeted, I suppose, if you like, from a theft perspective. So we actually had quite a few people in the last National Ag Survey that we put out suggest that farm security is something they'd like us to look at, and it is on the agenda. But I thought I'd get a little step ahead and bring you a snapshot of what some of that is going to look like. So we're talking about methods of protection. So what can we do to protect our gear and protect some of our assets on farm? Some of it can be quite simple. Making a deterrent, as Campbell mentioned, being able to actually just locate the gear. Is it stolen, or did we just lose it out in the paddock somewhere? And of course, it's all about vigilance. So that's what we want cameras there for, so we can keep an eye on things when we're not there, or on various parts of the farm that we don't often get to. So deterrents can actually be pretty simple, So with your tools, maybe it's just an option, and tools get picked up pretty easily because they're transportable, they're usable, they're saleable, and they're often quite expensive. I don't know if you've been into a tool shop and bought any quality tools lately, but they aren't cheap. And so, just simply marking them, and it might be that you've got a couple of tradies on the farm, accidentally pick up yours. It wasn't, it's just purely by accident. But the fact that if they're marked, something like this, you can identify them as yours, and in fact, the tradie or whoever else is there on farm can identify them as well, and make sure they don't go missing. So that labelling is actually pretty simple, and I'm going to tell you about a mate of mine called Tim in a Tick. Who labels his gear in a bit of an unusual way. The other one is engraving, and so engraving tools is pretty simple. You do have to use a diamond bit on your engraving tool for some of your hardened tools. Just be a little bit careful that you don't go too deep, and for example, sockets, you can actually weaken them a little bit depending on where you've marked them. And for plastic tools, we tend to use soldering irons, so that's a good option if you've got a plastic tool. And you want to put some initials on it, a soldering iron is a good option. Now, I was talking about Tim before. Tim's a bit of a character, and so all of his tools are bright purple or bright pink, and he reckons nothing ever goes missing, right? Because no one wants to touch his bloody ladder because it looks ridiculous. But I suppose my point is that A, it's easily identifiable. B, you know where it is. And you know, in most cases, no one's going to want to pick that up and take it with them. So maybe something like that, some basic markings is probably not a bad way to go. And by the way, you can get those shovels a little bit like the hand pieces in a range of colours. So you can match them up if you like. Right. The other one to think about is just recording your serial numbers. In a lot of cases, insurance companies like you to do that as well. And I'm pretty sure from Campbell's perspective, if we're talking about locating some gear later on and actually identifying that it's yours, having the serial number is pretty important. Okay? Who records the serial numbers of the gear as they get it? A few? Not many of us say. So, but you know what? Your mobile phone is actually a really good way of doing it. So instead of sitting there and scratching them down, just go and grab a photo of it. You might chuck it in a folder on your phone. Okay? So at least you've got some record. And it's also pretty bloody handy when you get down to the chainsaw shop and forget what model number your chainsaw is. And you can look it up and you've got the plate there as well. So if you're buying some parts or whatever. Target hardening, maybe what we need to do is just make things a little less accessible. That's a Husqvarna. I think it's a 3120 XP, 118 cc's, big bulky saw. Husqvarna owners are yuck, yeah. Still owners are like, yeah. And not to be outdone, the Husqvarna owners are like, yeah. 84-inch bar and only comes in black, make of that what you will. Righto, so the tracking is actually probably pretty interesting as well. So just knowing where some of that gear is. Anyone used the Apple tags? Anyone use those at all? They're pretty handy. I do a fair bit of flying. And when Qantas lose my bags, which is pretty much every week, I can locate them. And actually the last phone call I had with Qantas, they said, oh, we haven't actually lost your bag, so we just can't locate it. And I'm like, is there a difference? I said, oh, it's all right, I know where it is. I can see it, it's in Melbourne. Oh, okay, yeah, right. Anyway, look, they're pretty useful. So the air tags are actually pretty cheap. There are other systems as well. There's a product called a Tile as well. But basically what they are is a little sensor that taps into a network. In the case of the Apple tags, it's a wireless network. And you can jump on your phone and it does a little ping through to a cloud-based platform. You can go and look up and find out where all those tags might be. So you might want to show one in your toolbox. You can attach them to various things. Some tool manufacturers, and the tag there on the left-hand side is a one-key tag from Milwaukee. You can attach those to any tools as well. And the way that they work is that they will come into contact with anyone who's got a Milwaukee app, which you think, oh, well, not too many people have got that, but who's got Milwaukee gear out of interest? Quite a few. Right, so you can actually get those tags and put them on any product you like. They also obviously integrate them into the tool itself. As I said, the way it works is that once you've identified that tool with that one key tag, you can go and find the location of the tool. You can actually switch it off so it becomes unusable outside a given area. The other thing I've got there is just a tracking unit, a GPS tracking unit, which can be integrated into a vehicle. And I've seen a couple of guys put those on quad bikes and on side-by-sides that obviously a pretty easy target, it's a pretty soft target. You can also put it on bigger machinery as well. And the beauty of that is that you can obviously then track and locate where those things are. Campbell talked about the data dots. This is what they look like. They come in a little spray can. And you can spray them all over, over your equipment. Say for cordless tools, you spray it in the battery holder, where you can, it's not going to get damaged and rubbed off terribly easy. But one of the things that is handy about these data dots is they come with these little stickers. And the stickers basically identify that the tool's been sprayed with data dots, and that in itself might become a deterrent. So this is what they look like under a microscope. They are really small. We're talking 1 mil, but they basically give you a whole stack of serial plates all over the machine, so you can actually identify that it's yours. Now, part of that obviously is also then registering the data dot that you've got there against the product that you put it on. So there's an online portal as well that handles those. I talked about those GPS modules. One of the things we can do is also set those up so that minimise the area in which the piece of machinery can operate. It's called geofencing. And so when that machine is operated outside that geofence, basically it stops. You know, you can set it up to do that. You can set it up to do a whole stack of things. You can set it up to alert you as to when it does move out of that defined area, if you like. So that's another option, some more technology that's out there that is pretty easily accessible. Obviously uses the mobile phone network in most cases to shoot you a text message or an email just to let you know where it is. Righto, let's talk a bit about cameras. So the selection of cameras is actually pretty important depending on what you're wanting to do. And unfortunately for things like number plate recognition, you do need some pretty specific gear. These Rayconics cameras, and that's a HL2X. There's also an MS7, which is a more zoomed sort of camera. That's that one on the right-hand side there. They're the ones that are designed specifically for number plate recognition. So if you're wanting to pick up someone's number plate on farm, they're the cameras that you want. Okay. Unfortunately, some of the other cameras, and there's plenty of other options out there, and I'll give you a few recos towards the end of the presentation. They'll pick up cars or pick up people. They'll give you a good general picture of what's going on. But the beauty about these is that they have really high shutter speed. They're really quite sensitive, and so you end up with images like this at 80 k's an hour at night. Okay. Bloody Queenslanders, unreal. Righto. But you can see obviously that you can recognise that number plate. Now if you had a regular security camera, you just wouldn't be able to pick that up. So I suppose the point is just make sure that the camera you're selecting is fit for purpose. Now we talked a bit about deterrence, and a bloody big camera like that can actually in its own sense be a deterrent as well. You might also opt for a covert style camera, and we'll talk about those. But signage is obviously pretty important. And if you really want to freak people out, one of these will do the job. Righto. So there are a couple of things that the cameras can do. Who's got just still cameras at home, or who's using video? Show who's got video cameras, CCTV style. Yep, a few. So I'm going to use an example of some cameras we've got set up on farm in the New England. And it does freak Dad out every now and again because I'll ring you up and say, oh, you might want to check that trough. There's something hanging around there, from the other side because I'm based in Perth. Yeah, so look, they're pretty handy, but you can, the cameras are set up so that they can do a couple of different things. First, I can tap into those cameras or that particular camera which looks over 2 water troughs in a couple of paddocks that are a long way from the house. I can keep an eye on those troughs in real time, and then also if there's some movement around the troughs, you'll also get an alert on your phone, right? Pretty simple, gives you an idea that something's going on. Sometimes you get an alert like that, you look on, it's just cattle drinking around the trough, you think, yep, that's no worries, no dramas at all. You can mute it for an hour, you can mute it for the rest of the day, whatever you like. Other features that some of these cameras got built into them are two-way communications. So actually being able to communicate with someone who's on the other end. It does freak people out sometimes when you start talking to them and they're at your front door dropping off a parcel and you're like, yeah, just put it over there, mate. I'm up here in the camera. It's a bit squashy up here, but I'm all right. Look, and the other one is integrated alarms as well, okay? So there are a few things you can do with the cameras that are more than just getting vision. If you are going to buy cameras, think a little bit about the resolution as well. As I mentioned before, being fit for purpose, cameras that work well at night and look at number plates. Resolution's also pretty important as well if you want to see more detail. And so they're the primary offerings, if you like, of the resolution that security cameras and monitoring cameras will come in. At the top end is 4K, and obviously, the higher res typically have higher price tags associated with them as well. Think about the field of view, okay? Think about what you're wanting to do. As I mentioned before, some of those Rayconics number plate cameras will focus very specifically on a piece of road so you can capture the number plate. But if you want to capture a wider area, you need to pick out a camera that's got a wider field of view. So just select carefully according to where you're going to try and put that camera or what you want and what you want it to do. This is a reasonably recent release. So it's actually got 2 lenses and gives you a full 180-degree view of what's going on there. Okay? So the way this technology is moving is it's pretty mind-blowing. And I have had a look at images, and you literally cannot tell where those 2 images cross over. Really neat fit. In a lot of cases, you're going to want to see what's going on at night. So night vision. A lot of the cameras have integrated infrared. Just make sure that that the infrared's going to do the job for you, and it can be some pretty significant differences. You can see the lower wavelength infrared on the left-hand side gets a lot more penetration than the one on the right. Just check those specs out, and in a lot of cases, you'll be able to get a feel for what sort of night vision. A lot of the manufacturers have specifications around both the infrared wavelength, and then also have some demonstration images as well, to give you a bit of an idea, as well as how far they expect you to be able to see at night with no other light source. The other one is obviously cameras that have got an integrated light source on them as well. And Campbell talked before about, even just lights popping on, sensor lights that are detecting movement. A lot of these cameras will detect movement, turn a light on, and also film what's going on there. So, there's a few options. Of course, they all need power. So your smaller, let's call them covert cameras, for want of a better word, that are typically set up in a particular position and left there. Those batteries normally last for about 12 months in most cases, depending on how frequently they're taking images. If it's at your front gate and you've got a lot of traffic coming in and out, probably won't last that long. Others have got solar panels, so you can buy a solar panel that'll keep the battery inside the camera charged up. And then if you've got cameras around houses and sheds, etc., workshops, one option might be to hardwire those with what's called PoE, power over Ethernet. So they're actually hardwired cable, which also provides both your power, but then takes that signal back to a central recorder. Image storage is obviously pretty important, right? So there's no point collecting the image and then, unless it's a covert camera and no one knows it's there, someone can see the camera, they can obviously knock it off and take the image with them, unless it's connected somewhere to the cloud where that image is stored remotely, if you like. Okay, so we've got a few options. As I said, the trail cameras, as they're called, are typically set up with an SD card that you'll go and retrieve later on. The idea is obviously that they are covert, that no one knows they're there. And if you are going to buy one of those, make sure you get one with what's called a black flash lighting. So in a lot of cases at night, you might be able to see a dim red glow. That'll obviously give the camera away. You want ones that are completely black. And there are, I mentioned Rayconics is a good brand before. That's definitely one to look at. And Swift is the other brand that have a black flash lighting LEDs in them as well that no one can see at night. So you've got a few options, as I mentioned, getting imagery and footage up to the cloud. You can do it through the power over Ethernet, so the Ethernet cables, as I mentioned, hardwired back to a central point. You could also do it with Wi-Fi, so if you've got a Wi-Fi network, you can tap into that and record images back to a central point as well. And then you've got 3G or 4G connectivity, which will push it up into a cloud. Okay, that's about $12.50 a month at this stage for each camera, depending on what option you've selected. Righto. As I mentioned, the cloud. Some of the camera manufacturers also have a cloud option, so that anything that's recorded on that particular make of camera gets sent up to a cloud. That costs about $70 a year for up to 10 cameras. So that's remote, off-site, in a central repository somewhere around the world that's secure, and all the imagery gets housed there that you can then jump on a portal later on and download. So where are we going to start with cameras? So yep, you can go and buy a kit like this, $700 to $1,000, typically hardwired that you put around the shed and the workshop and the house. Most of them have night vision. Most of them are powered through the Ethernet, through those Cat6 cables. And most of them will go back to what's called an NVR here, or up to a cloud if you've got that connected as well. And in a lot of cases, that's just a press button kit, right? So it just comes as a kit. You set the cameras up, you wire it up, it's straightforward. But it is sort of limited to where you're going to set it up, around the house and sheds. The other option is if you've got Wi-Fi within range, you can obviously use cameras like this. You've got options including pan, tilt and zoom, the PTZ cameras as they call them. So that's that centre camera there. That gives you the ability to spin the camera around remotely and zoom in on particular things if you have a particular interest in that. And I should add that some of these companies are now building tracking cameras. So they'll actually pick up people and vehicles, and the camera is smart enough to know that or identify that that's a person or a vehicle and track it as it moves along, okay, remotely and automatically, I should say. So the only issue with these is they obviously need to be in a Wi-Fi network. So again, you're limited to where you are around the house. And then, of course, storage-wise, it's going back up to the cloud. Think about power for some of these. In a lot of cases, mains power. You can get some solar options if they will take a solar panel. Then you've got the mobile network connected cameras. Okay, so front gates, sheds, silos, fuel tanks around the house. They're small in most cases, but not invisible. They do make like little silicon jackets for them that are supposed to be camouflaged, which actually work quite well. Again, in a lot of cases, the manufacturers will give you software that will give you alerts. You get push messaging coming through from those cameras to say they've detected movement. As I mentioned, 3G and 4G mobile network connected cameras, just be a little bit cautious because 3G is getting switched off in 2024. So if you want some longevity, make sure you're looking for 4G/5G cameras if you're going down this path. Nighttime operation, infrared typically out to 10 metres. And as I mentioned, you've got some of those other features like the two-way voice, all that sort of stuff, which again it freaks animals out when they're at the water trough and you start speaking to them. I should mention that a lot of these camera manufacturers, if you do go with one particular brand, it's worth sticking with that brand. Only because in a lot of cases the dashboard, if you like, that comes with that particular brand of camera means that you could add multiple cameras onto it. Right, so I've got about 15 cameras on my app at the moment. We're trying to build a house in Perth, so I can see what the chippies are up to each day. I can check Dad's water troughs, and I know what's going on in the front yard and whether anyone nipped into our backyard overnight. You know, that's all before I get out of bed. So I suppose the app is really good, and I can also switch it off if I'm up here giving her a talk and I don't want to be disturbed by the chippies doing something stupid in Perth. So I just mention that because sometimes that you sort of think, well, you know, this particular brand might be good for this and this particular brand might be good for that. Just have a look at the range that brand might offer and make your selection within that brand, because the dashboard will be a lot easier to manage in that regard. All right, so your covert cameras, where are these good for? Maybe the back of the farm, you've got a back gate somewhere, on a remote road somewhere. The idea is with these, obviously they're put there and left. You know, if you want to recognise number plates, as I mentioned, they've got to have that fast reaction time of 0.2 of a second, and I mentioned those couple of, the Rayconics brand is the one to probably go for there. They're a dedicated number plate camera. Battery and solar options. You can get them. Most of them now come with a 4G option as well if you want connectivity through to a network. Okay, so there are plenty of options. These cost sort of, you know, $300 to $600. The higher end ones, the more connected ones, are sort of upwards to $800 to $1,000 per camera. Okay, but if that gives you security and peace of mind that your back gate is being monitored on a regular basis and going to take a snap of anyone that comes through it, that's probably a good thing and probably pretty cheap insurance. The mounted cameras, you know, again, these are as much about deterrent as anything else. So large, they're visible, they're loud, they've got integrated sirens, they've got integrated lights. All these things can be good deterrents. The cost is pretty high. I'm not going to quote a figure because the last time I looked at it, it had doubled. So, but they are available. And if you've got high risk areas or areas that are potentially highly targeted, they're near a road, that's the sort of thing that you might want to go for. Right, now I mentioned the software before. As I said, you monitor multiple cameras at once. You can minimise false alarms by increasing or decreasing the sensitivity, and then also excluding areas within the frame that you don't particularly want monitored. So if you're near a road, you don't want to see all the trucks going past and get alerted about those. It can ignore sections of the frame. You can, depending on which manufacturer, you can find footage and watch it pretty easily. Download it from ages ago. Again, live alerts and also the ability to just switch it off when you want to. So I mentioned those couple of cameras that we've got at home on the farm. I'm just going to show you a little bit of footage from those. These are just rough examples. Those cameras have been there for sort of 5 years now. This is just Dad ripping around checking the water troughs. But as you can see, reasonable clarity. You could get a feel for whether there was someone there on farm, chasing a few stock around. You get an idea as to whether there's an issue, if there's an animal stuck in a trough or something like that. So that's about 25 minutes from the house at home. So being able to just have a quick look at what's going on there is obviously pretty important, and also saves a hell of a lot of time. So being able to do trough runs is made easy. And then again, sometimes you just capture stuff that you think is a bit bizarre. These guys clearly didn't get on. That's the most fight I've seen the wallabies put up for a long time. Righto, you get the picture. Righto, so there are other options out there. I've talked a lot about cameras, but there are other options as well. And so we've got things like gate position sensors. Is the gate open or closed? You might just get a little simple text alert. The beauty about some of these is that they're integrated into the Internet of Things, the IoT. Okay, over in the shed, there's a stack of people that are selling bits and pieces of gear that integrate into either a LoRa system or into an online system or an NB, a narrowband IoT system, and that gives us the ability to plug all sorts of sensors into it. Whether that's a gate sensor, it might be a fuel tank, diesel tank depth sensor. You get a notification, see that you've lost 200 litres of diesel. It tells you either someone's there knocking it off, or an animal's brushed up your side and ripped the hose off. At least you get an idea of what's going on pretty quickly and you're alerted. They can also integrate flow meters. As I mentioned, you've got a stack of different connectivity options there. LoRaWAN, which is low power, but it does a great job. There's some, the Helix, the guys that specialise in Helix systems are over in the shed today, so make sure you have a chat to them. They'll talk a little bit more about what LoRaWAN is and what sensors you can hang off it. We've got guys in the West that have got a LoRaWAN set up, that have got tanks, flow meters, the whole show set up on a little network. They haven't got cellular coverage, they haven't got phone coverage on that particular property, but they've got a LoRa set up there that works well. Again, you can use the mobile network and, as I mentioned, the narrowband IoT. And then, of course, you've got satellite if you really get stuck, okay? And who knows where we're going to end up with Elon if he gets off Twitter for a while. The Starlink satellite service is pretty impressive, and people who are using it are getting great data bandwidth. Even though he's pissing off a few astronomers, that's fine. We can at least all watch Netflix, so that's always important. Some more sensors down the bottom. Again, these are IoT sensors, so a shaft alarm just to detect when anything has been moved or shifted, and it's a LoRaWAN ear tag that has an integrated GPS sensor as well, so you know where animals are moving. I think that's updated on an hourly basis. So just a few options to think about. There is a heap of stuff out there in terms of on-farm sensors and sensor technology that could really assist in terms of what you're trying to achieve. They can assist in productivity, but also farm security as well. So I guess the point is that we're trying to integrate all these technologies and get multiple benefits out of them. So back to the start. Think about your labelling. Deterrence is what a fair bit of this is about. Go and buy yourself a pink shovel if you need to. You can paint your ladder pink or purple, whatever you want. Label your gear. Use an engraver. Put some data dots on it. Record your serial numbers. Gather a bit of evidence. I'm sure Campbell would be appreciative of any photos or information that you've got that might identify who's maybe responsible for a few missing tools in your workshop. And from a camera installation perspective, there's plenty of options. There's heaps of gear out there, but I'd encourage you just to start simple. Go and get a little Wi-Fi camera that might cost you $150. Put it around the house. Just point it on the shed. Might just be a simple way to start. Okay. And of course, moving on, there are plenty of other options that also integrate the Internet of Things that potentially could give you some production benefits and information as well.